Hello and welcome everybody to a special evening. I'm Tom Mauro, joined by Yepez, and we're the hosts of BMB Sports Talk, and tonight we will both be your hosts for this special event.
Last month, on a new feature called Faces in the Cases on Sports Talk, Tom and I got to spend some time with 1979 Mepham graduate, Major League outfielder, and soon-to-be member of the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame member, John Morris.
That's right, Lily. So tonight, everyone here will have an opportunity to get to talk with John and hear from the same way we did. And so welcome, John, as well as a minute to recognize Mepham Athletic Director, Coach Kracko, and Mepham Principal, Mr. Gomez.
Thank you all for joining us. John, thank you for being here this evening and, not only speaking to our students, but also some parents are on here as well, wanting to get some insight as to how you were able to transition from the hallways of Mepham to the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame, which is a great, great accomplishment. So really, we appreciate you being here and spending some time with us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
We also want to welcome Coach Kracko here tonight. Thank you for joining us.
On behalf of the athletic department, I just want to again thank Mr. Morris for joining us and spending some time sharing his story. And it's great to have you. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your story and a little bit about your insights into athletics and particularly baseball.
Well, I was very fortunate in growing up in the North Bellmore area in Nassau County that I had a lot of great influences. I had older brothers, I had older friends, I had great teachers, I had great coaches, and I learned a lot from all of them and put me in a position where I've been able to have a 40-year career in professional baseball as a player, coach, manager, scout, and now executive. So I never lose sight of things about it. My gratitude towards the influence, positive influences I had growing up. So if I can share anything with anybody today, if you hear 100 things on the call tonight and one thing resonates with you, please consider it tonight a major victory for all of you. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them. There's no silly questions. There's no stupid questions. And anything I can do to help anybody on this call tonight, I really want to help you as much as I can.
So, John, we thought, to give people a chance to hear from you, Lily and I would ask you some questions, and then at the end, we'll open up the conversation for questions. Sounds that good?
Yeah, sounds great. Let's go. Let's have some fun with this.
Perfect. So, let's start off, at the start. You went to Mepham in the late 70s. What was Mepham like back then? What was Bellmore like back then? And how'd you end off on the baseball field in the diamond as a Pirate?
Well, I went to Mepham from 1977 as a sophomore and graduated in 79. I went to Jerusalem Avenue Junior High School prior to that, and Jacob Gunther Elementary School. I was very fortunate growing up in North Bellmore that I had a really great support system. I had friends my own age, and some older friends too, because I had an older brother. So I was very fortunate that I got to grow up with kids my own age who like to play different sports, and also older kids who were able to put me in a more competitive environment. So I was very fortunate all the way around.
So, John, after high school, did you have a lot of options for where you wanted to go to school? How did you finally settle in Seton Hall?
When I was going through the recruiting process, I finally figured out my junior year that, maybe I could make a run at playing baseball. So I decide if I wanted to stay close to home, if I wanted to commute, if I wanted to go away but be close to home, or if I wanted to go maybe somewhere south. So I had about 15 to 20 schools that had expressed a range of interest in me. And I narrowed my choices down to 3 schools. One was the University of Tampa, which was a Division II baseball powerhouse at the time. And the second one was Seton Hall University if I wanted to go away from home but stay in the Northeast. And the third one was St. John's University in Queens if I wanted to really stay local and commute. All 3 of them had great advantages, and all of them had things that I was concerned about. So I just remember getting down to the end and not being able to decide. So one of my coaches gave me great advice, and he just said, make a list of every category that's important to you and pick a winner in each of those categories, St. John's, Seton Hall, or Tampa, and you will find at the end of that checklist, one school really resonates with you. And that school was Seton Hall. because I realized that I really wanted to stay close to home, but I wanted to have the experience of living in the dorms and growing up away from home, but also playing for an elite Division I baseball program. And I really believe I made the right decision. It was great decision on my part.
Now, how was college baseball different from high school baseball? How'd you go from being a pitcher in high school to then a college outfielder?
I was recruited as a pitcher. I was a two-time all-county pitcher at Mepham. I was not a good hitter. I would say I was a poor hitter. I pulled everything on the ground. I didn't know how to get the ball in the air. I didn't know there was anything such as the left side of second base. I was a terrible hitter. But I was a very good pitcher. And in choosing to go to Seton Hall, I always just wanted the option that if this pitching thing didn't work out, that I would have a fallback option, maybe a plan B. And it really worked out well, because had I gone to St. John's, they had such a legendary pitching coach and the program was so good, but they had great pitching. And had I hurt my arm the way I did my freshman year, I probably would have been done and I would have been finished with baseball at the age of 19. So fortunately for me, the pitching thing didn't work out so good. I kind of lost interest and I turned my attention elsewhere, and I learned how to compete and fight for something that was really important to me as a sophomore at Seton Hall.
So one of your big breaks in college was being invited to the Cape Cod League. Could you explain why that was such a huge opportunity for you and how it helped you gain confidence in your abilities?
Great question, Lily. So after my sophomore year, I competed really well my sophomore year. I won the starting job as a center fielder at Seton Hall. I was a leadoff hitter. My hitting coach was fabulous. He was perfect for me. Taught me how to drive the ball to left center field, use the whole field, learn the strike zone, become really aggressive. I got bigger, stronger, faster. I was probably 15 pounds heavier my sophomore year than my senior year in high school. I was much stronger, and my confidence was evolving and developing. And at the end of my sophomore year, I got invited to the Cape Cod Summer League, which is the showcase league in the United States for college baseball players. And I was scared to death going up there. I was really intimidated because I knew that I was going to be on a national stage playing against the best players in the country. And I thought my success in my sophomore year at Seton Hall was just a regional thing, that I could compete in the Northeast. But once I got up there, in the back of my mind, I was afraid that I would be exposed. And I remember the first 2 weeks being up at the Cape, and I was really struggling terribly. I was really having a lot of 0 for 4s and non-competitive at bat. And after 2 weeks, my coach came up to me, Joe Arnold from Florida Southern College in Lakeland, Florida. And he said, "Hey, I got 2 things I want to tell you that'll help you with your hitting." And I said, "Okay, thanks. Let me have it." And he said, You're barring out your arm. You know, your hands are getting too far away from your body." And he walked away. And I caught him and I said, "Hey, coach, you said you had 2 things. That's one. What else you got for me?" And he turned around and he said, probably the most important thing to me any human being has ever said to me. He came up to me and he pointed his finger in my chest and he said, "John, you are the best player in this league. I suggest you start acting like it." And I cannot impress upon you enough the importance of what he said to me, in that, it was really cool that somebody really stood up for me and he saw more in me than I could see in myself at that particular time. And at that time, Joe Arnold became an important mentor for me, in that he saw more in me than I could ever see in myself. And what happened over the next 6 weeks was truly magical, in that 6 weeks later, I won the MVP of the league. I was second in the league in batting. I set a record for runs scored in the Cape Cod League. I was literally the best player in the league in a 6-week period. And none of that happens without the conversation I had with Joe Arnold. So it had a lot less to do with how far my hands were from my body and more to do with somebody seeing more in me than I could see in myself at that time. So great experience, one of the top experiences of my life.
So then, John, you got drafted in 1982 by the Kansas City Royals in the first round. What was that moment like, not only knowing that you've been drafted, but you've been drafted in the first round?
Well, I used the Cape Cod experience as a catapult to send me into my junior year full of confidence, knowing that I could compete at a very high level. And my junior year, I could have gotten draftitis, which is a term that people sometimes use to, don't panic and keep being yourself. And my junior year was very productive. And I knew that there were a lot of eyeballs on me. I was being watched every game by representatives from all 30 major league clubs. And it didn't bother me. I kind of enjoyed it, the attention, and I was able to perform. I played on a great Seton Hall team my junior year. We were one of the best teams in the Northeast. We went to the NCAA regionals. And the day I was drafted, it was a great moment. And I'm so proud that I was able to do it as an outfielder who in high school never hit over 300. So that's pretty cool in my eyes.
So after the draft, the Royals send you to Fort Myers, Florida in the Florida State League. What was that experience like leaving home, leaving the Northeast and becoming a professional athlete?
It was very cool. I went to the Florida State League, which is a high A league. It's a very competitive league. It's a pitcher's league. It's the dead of summer in Florida. Temperatures are really high humidity, huge ballparks. Ball doesn't carry, and it was a very, very good challenge for me. And I hit well that summer. I hit 285 with some home runs. But the nice thing about it is I really got to play with and live with people from all over the world. I had roommates from Southern California. I had teammates from the Dominican Republic. We had a South Korean player. I had, guys from the Deep South and upstate New York. So it really opened my eyes that there's lots of different people out there and people to learn from and people to grow with. And that was really the beginning of my 12-year playing career, to where I would meet some incredibly special people.
So in 1985, the Royals traded you to the Cardinals, and a year later, you're in the major leagues. What experience was it like getting called up to the major leagues and playing? Do you remember your first game or, even your first at bat?
Yeah, I was called up, I think, in early August of 1986. I was in AAA Louisville with the Cardinals. I wasn't doing particularly well, but our center fielder at the time, Willie McGee, had torn his hamstring. So this was an opportunity for me to finally go up. And my first game in the big leagues, playing right field, and we're playing the Philadelphia Phillies. And I remember the first three hitters came up for the Cardinals. And at that time, I don't think in my 4 years of playing in the minor leagues, I don't think I made 2 errors in the outfield. And I was, in my mind, I was a Gold Glove defender. So defense was never a concern. But that night, the lights were taking effect. It was very gray, hazy background. And the first 3 batters came up, hit 3 ground balls. And the bottom of the first that night, I was batting 7th, and the bases were loaded when the last out was made. And so I'm going to lead off the next inning. And I went out in the second inning, and Mike Schmidt, who's a Hall of Fame hitter for the Phillies, came up and hit the first pitch straight up in the air towards right field. And I thought it was hitting my direction, but I wasn't sure. And this was a routine fly ball that landed probably 40 feet behind me. And now all of a sudden, this cool, calm, and collected kid was just scared to death. And if you ever want to know what it feels like to be booed by 50,000 people, feel free after the call, and I'll share what that was like for you. It was awful. I wanted to crawl underneath the AstroTurf right there. And now we gave up a run, and I had to lead up the second inning. And I got booed again by 50,000 people, and impatiently swung at the first pitch, popped it up to right field. And that nightmare scenario, it seemed like it took 8 hours to play that game. And fortunately for me, the next day, I got my first hit, my first run, my first RBI, my first stolen base, and the boos from the night before had now turned into cheers. So another great lesson for me in terms of, you know, you can have good days, you can have bad days. The beauty of baseball is we always get an opportunity to come back, and we don't have to wait too long for the next opportunity.
So a year later, you're in the World Series with the Cardinals facing an old childhood friend. Take us through the experience on not only being in the World Series, but also facing a guy that you faced throughout your entire life.
Our 1987 Cardinal team was a fantastic team. Back then, there were two divisions in each league. There was the National League East and the National League West. And the Cardinals were in the same division as the New York Mets and the Cubs and the Montreal Expos and the Pittsburgh Pirates. And it was very competitive. You had to win your division in order to advance to the playoffs. There were no. So I remember we went to the last week of the season and won the division, again, beating out the Mets and the Expos. It was a fantastic pennant race. And then we beat the San Francisco Giants in the League Championship Series and advanced to the World Series against the Minnesota Twins. And I'm very proud to say that we had four gentlemen from Nassau and Suffolk County who played in the 87 World Series. Myself, Gene Larkin, who grew up on Bellmore Road, 2 blocks from me. He went to Chaminade High School. We had Frank Viola from East Meadow High School, who went on to star at St. John's University. And then we had Sal Butera, who was out in the Sachem area of Suffolk County. So 4 guys from Long Island playing in the 1987 World Series. Very proud moment for me. Unfortunately, I wound up on the short end of that, but great experience, one I'll forever treasure. And Frank Viola, good friend of mine from East Meadow. He's a kid that I played against a lot in middle school. I could never beat him. Couldn't beat him at East Meadow High School in the county championship, pitching against him. Then he beat me in the minor leagues. Then he beat me in the big leagues. Then he beat me in the World Series. So I never got to beat Frank, and he reminds me of it every time I talk to him. So one of these days I'll get him. Maybe I'll get him on the golf course. Who knows? But that's the Long Island story.
So after your playing days were done, you went back to get your degree at Seton Hall University, and you ended up coaching and scouting and actually working in the Reds front office. What did these new experiences teach you about life and success?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that it's never too late to get your college degree. So I affectionately like to tell people that I was on the 15-year college program, and that I went to school for 3 years at Seton Hall. Then after my junior year, I got drafted. So I put getting my degree off, and I would go back periodically and pick off classes one at a time. And, you know, sure enough, 12 years later, I got it. And that was a promise that I had made to my mom, that one day when I was done playing, I was going to get my degree. So, you know, there's no time period. There's nothing that says you have to do it in 4 years. Okay? It took me 15 and it worked out fine. So the good part about getting my degree is that I finished something that was important to me, and I completed it. It wasn't always pretty, it wasn't always nice, but I got it done, and I'm very proud of that. So if you start something like college, I would really encourage you, whether it's a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree or a master's degree or a PhD, when you make the decision to go for it and finish it off. That's my college promotion there. As far as when I was done playing, that was very interesting in that I got to play professionally until I was 32 years old. By the time I got to 32, I had played for 12 years and my body was shot. I was having major back problems. I couldn't run the way I used to. My bat speed had been diminished. And at 32, I realized I was a shell of the player that I was at 22. So there comes a day when we all have to stop playing. Some of us, it happens at 18. Some of us, it happens at 28. Some of us, it happens at 38. And the really exceptional people are playing into their late 40s. So I feel blessed and fortunate that I was able to play until I was 32. But then when I was done, I was like, all right, what do I want to do? Well, I love baseball. I'm very passionate about baseball, and I know I learned a lot playing. So in terms of teaching and coaching and wanting to stay connected to the game, I got invited by Joe Madden, who's the current manager of the Anaheim Angels. Joe at the time was the farm director for the California Angels. And he asked me if I wanted to get into player development as a coach. So I coached for 6 years with the Anaheim Angels in the AA level and the AAA level. And then I got out of baseball. I got a little burned out. I played around with some other things, did some other business related activities. But then I realized after 3 years of being out of that, I missed it. And I got a call from the Philadelphia Phillies, and they invited me to come into their player development system. So I went into managing and coaching for 6 years with the Phillies, and I got to work with some of the greatest players in Phillies history: Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Carlos Ruiz, Ryan Madsen, Cole Hamels. And that was a fabulous learning experience for me. But then even after that 6-year period, I realized, you know what, my body's really shutting down. Now I'm starting to have neck problems. I'm starting to have shoulder problems. I'm starting to have knee problems. I'm starting to have hip problems. So I still love baseball, but what else can I do? So I started to explore the possibility of scouting and talent evaluation. And I got into that, and that has been an absolute joy and a pleasure to be working in that field of baseball, because it's taught me a lot about, using applications on iPads and cell phones and creating video and using templates. And it's really about keeping up with the young people who know so much more about this stuff than I did. So it's really been fascinating. I just got invited to come back for my beginning of my 15th year with the Cincinnati Reds. I've been a scout, and I'm also in the front office as an advisor to the general manager. So I get to do a lot of fun things. I watch about 200 baseball games a year. I watch a lot of Met games. I watch a lot of Yankee games, a lot of Boston Red Sox games, and a lot of the minor league players in their systems. So I get to go to a game, watch each team or each affiliate play 5 games, so I can see all the pitchers and all the position players, and then I get to write about it on my iPad and then press a few buttons, and it sinks its way up to Cincinnati and internet land. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so after all these experiences, what has it taught you about life? What can all these Mepham students and parents take away from your experiences to create their own success?
Well, I was kind of anticipating this question, and how could I say something profound that would resonate with everybody on the call here? So, I like to use baseball as a metaphor for life, in that I always tell people that baseball is a very simple game, but there's nothing easy about it. And I think if we stop and look at a lot of things in our lives, a lot of things are simple. Eat well, have a healthy lifestyle, be nice to people, have good relationships, have a winning baseball team. Lots of those things sound very simple, but very few of them, when done properly, come easy. So let me give you an example. The simplicity of baseball is to score more runs than the other team. Let's continue. Get 3 outs, catch the ball, throw the ball, hit the ball, have a good 2-strike approach. Don't strike out, throw strikes, touch all the bases. Those things are very simple. But as we have all found out, whether it be baseball or football or soccer or tennis or golf or any competitive endeavor, none of them are easy to perform well. And the difficulty comes in the execution of fundamentals, basically, in every aspect of game. So when I talk about hitting, it's one thing to say, just put the ball in play. Well, if I have a really long swing and I don't know how to have a short swing, that simple task becomes very difficult. Or if I'm a pitcher and my coach is telling me to just throw strikes, and I'm really trying to throw strikes, but I'm all over the place. I'm throwing down and away, up and in. I can't find the strike zone. The idea of throwing strikes is very simple, but the execution of that can be very challenging. So here's what I tell people. For for whatever they choose to do. Most things sound simple, but I'm going to give everybody the blueprint here in the next 3 minutes to get whatever you want. You basically can hold up a goal, and I'm going to tell you how to get that goal. Now, I'm not guaranteeing it's going to happen, but here's a blueprint for success. If you want to write this down, feel free to do this. I'm going to give you 4 or 5 simple things. Number 1 is to decide what you want. Okay, that sounds simple. I want to be a Major League Baseball player. Number 1, decide what you want. Number 2 is have an idea of when that you'd like that day to occur. So for me, I said in 1982, I will be a Major League Baseball player on or before April 1st, 1985. Well, it didn't happen. I was off by a year, but that's okay. It was 1986. So decide what you want, set the date, number 2. Number 3, and this is a tough one for a lot of people. There's no such thing as something for nothing. There's no free rides. So what are we willing to give up in order to achieve my goal? And one story comes to mind. I remember I was a sophomore at Seton Hall University, and my hitting coach told me, here's what I want you to do. On Tuesday and Thursday nights, I want you to go into the indoor facility, put left-handed breaking ball on the machine, and hit left-handed breaking balls for 45 minutes on Tuesday and Thursday night. I want you to do it between 8 and 9 o'clock. Okay? And that way you learn how to stay on the breaking ball and drive it to left center field. Okay? No big deal. I remember doing that the winter of my sophomore year, and it was really important to me, and I was getting it. I was figuring it out. And every Thursday night, I remember I had to walk through campus in order to get to my apartment. And I remember one Thursday night in early December, it was snowing out. And as I'm walking across campus, I had to walk past the only bar on campus. It was called the Pub. And I walked by the pub every night, and the baseball players would be in the corner. And as I walked past them, they would heckle me and they'd make fun of me. And they would yell at me, come on, Morris, get in here. Come on, you big baby. Come on in and have some fun with us. And I just remember saying to myself, not making anybody wrong, I'm not going where you're going. I'm on a different track, not a better track. Just, this is my journey. This is where I'm going. I want to play baseball. And I just remember that as being something that I had to give up. I gave up a good chunk of my social life in college in order to get something else. So that's what I gave up. Would I do it over again? I'd do it exactly the way I did it. But just realize that there's no such thing as something for nothing. Okay? There is sacrifice involved. Number 4, have a specific plan of action. So if my goal is to become a really good hitter, I am going to talk to people who know how to hit. I'm going to talk to people who know how to teach hitting. I'm going to study video. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to turn a long swing into a short swing. I'm going to have a good two-strike approach. I'm going to learn how to use the whole field. I'm going to learn how to recognize strikes as opposed to balls. I'm going to learn how to fight my way through adversity when the going gets tough. There's lots of things I'm going to learn. And then on top of that, I'm going to have to play. The only way you get better at doing something is by playing. You have to play. I'll give you one more example of this execution thing. So I told you, number 1, decide what you want. Number 2, set the date when it's going to happen. Number 3, what are you willing to give up? Number 4, have a plan of action, specific steps that you're going to do. And then number 5 is you have to do the work. Okay? You actually have to do the work. And I'll give you a very simple way to do the work. This is simple. So I've spent 40 years of my life, secretly, I always wanted to be a singer in a rock and roll band. I always wanted to play a musical instrument. I always thought I was going to be Jimi Hendrix when I was little, or Jimmy Page with Led Zeppelin. It didn't work out. And I always wanted to play a musical instrument. And last year, at the end of the year, I said, you know what? I got some time here. I think it's time I challenge myself. And I'm going to learn. I'm going to teach myself how to play a musical instrument. So I went online and I started investigating musical instruments that are easy to learn and self-taught. And I decided I was going to teach myself how to play ukulele, which is a 4-string guitar. So I bought this ukulele, and it took me about a week to figure out which end to hold. And I said, you know what? I really like this thing. It's more fun than biting my nails. It's more fun than getting upset with people, and it gives me some quiet time. So in the last 9 months since I got this ukulele, it's been in my hands every day. I maybe have missed 2 or 3 days where it has not been in my hands for anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes a day. And I can profess that I'm not going on tour anytime soon. I'm not going to be a lead singer. I'm not even going to be a lead guitarist or ukulele player, but I can play 15 songs now. And not only can I sing Happy Birthday now, but I can play Happy Birthday. So I'm the hit in any birthday party. And I can play Take Me Out to the Ball Game, and I can play some of my favorite Beatles songs. And none of that would have been possible had I not made the decision that this thing is going to be in my hand every day. All right? Little practice every day goes a long way. And the cumulative effect of having the ukulele in my hand has taught me so much about daily practice. So if you're a baseball player and you have a choice between 3 hours a week of practice, I would recommend 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week, take the 7th day off to rest, as opposed to just working out for 3 days, 3 hours on Saturday. You will gain a lot from the repetitive experience and the accumulation of repeating actions, doing something every day. And it's the same thing with studying. It's the same thing with any sport, with any activity. Doing a little bit every day will serve you much better in the long run. So I'm going to stop talking about my music career and move back on to other topics. So fire away, Tom.
All right, sounds good. So we're going to jump over now to the current head coach of the baseball team, Coach Passman. So, Coach Passman, if you want to go ahead and chime in.
Am I muted now? No, I'm not muted, right, Tom?
No, you're good. You're good.
Good. Hey, John, nice to meet you again. It seemed like years ago when I was a young guy, we played a million different sports, and all the athletes played different sports. We went from one to another to another. The last, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 years where there's a million travel teams all over the place, a million travel organizations are encouraging these kids to just play their sport, and completely disagree with it. Most coaches do disagree with it. How do you stand on athletes playing multiple sports, especially, of course, at the middle school and high school level?
Well, that's a great question, Coach, and thank you for asking it, because it's a topic I'm very passionate about and very adamant. Again, this is my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but I have watched this over a similar time period that you're referencing over the last 15 to 20 years, the influx of travel teams and specialization sports, and I'm a huge proponent of young men and young women playing as many sports as possible, because I think the benefits of playing multiple sports far outweigh the drawbacks of specializing in one sport. The last thing I want to do is encourage anybody to play baseball 12 months a year or 11 months out of the year, and then wonder why you've stopped playing at the age of 17. And I could probably look at it as, perhaps you experience burnout. And I would hate for you to no longer love baseball because you were burned out at the ripe old age of 17. So I think when we play different sports, it teaches us a lot of different things on a lot of different levels. It teaches us to grow physically, mentally, emotionally. We learn to develop leadership skills with different peer groups. But also, it from a physical point of view, it puts us in a position. If I'm a football player and then I'm playing baseball in the spring, I'm using my body in a different way. If I'm a basketball player in the winter and then I run track, I'm forcing my body to grow and develop and strengthen using different body movements, which is really wonderful. If I'm playing baseball 11 months out of the year and I'm a pitcher, I'm making the same repetitive move that really just does not it's not the way my body was designed to work as a 16-year-old kid or a 15-year-old softball player making the same repetitive underhand move throwing a baseball. And I just feel that young people are much better off playing multiple sports. And I'd be happy to have this conversation with anybody offline. And I'll defend my position. I don't have to be right, but I'll always appreciate being heard. And I can also cite many examples of professional baseball scouts looking forward to the winter when they get to go see the baseball player they're interested in go be the point guard on the basketball team, because they want to see his leadership skills. They want to see how he handles stress. They want to see how he is when he's not the best player on the court. They want to see how he performs when when he's down by a point and he's got 2 foul shots to win the game. The same can be said if they're looking at the star quarterback and they're looking at, he's a pitcher, he's a pitching prospect, he's also the star quarterback. What kind of leader is this kid? How does he perform in front of, on a Friday night when the lights are on? This is all wonderful stuff. And it's the same thing I would encourage for females. If you're a softball player, go play basketball. Learn how to dribble a basketball with your left and your right hand. Learn how to pick and screen. Learn how to become a good teammate with other peer groups. These are wonderful examples of growth that I would really encourage everybody to do. A huge part of my baseball development came from being a good soccer player. I wasn't a great soccer player. I was a good high school soccer player. I knew that was the end of the line for me, but I learned how to use my left and my right foot. I learned how to communicate non-verbally through body language and looking at a teammate and saying, hey, I'm going here, pass it up that way. You know, learning how to bounce back from tough losses. I remember my junior year, we lost in the South Shore County Championship to, it was Berner High School then, now it's Massapequa. And it was devastating. It was a crushing loss. And I remember saying to myself, I'll never recover from this. Well, guess what? I recovered from it. And it worked out fine. But, you know, a lot of times we can't experience success until we learn how to fail. And the more we expose ourselves to, the better chance we have for growth, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So in my mind, play multiple sports, enjoy them all, and you'll find the one that really resonates with you as you get closer towards your junior and senior year. You'll figure it out.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Coach Passman. I'm going to toss it over to Coach Dembski, who works alongside Coach Passman. If you want to chime in there, Coach.
Hey, everybody. Hey there, John.
Hello, Coach.
First off, I think it's so cool what the broadcasting program did here, reaching out to you, and so awesome that you came on. It's been really great hearing your input and sharing all this info with us. It's awesome. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. And, you know, I'll stay on as long as anybody wants to open up and fire away, ask questions. There's no stupid questions. It's just good information here.
Yeah, I guess a question I would have, and then, you know, just in terms of, you know, obviously you played at every level there is. So anything that you found in common from when you were playing in terms of just, you know, skills you've learned or drills you've done, or, you know, just things you've learned along the way, things that you've learned that are in common with your high school, maybe career, and then in relation to your major league career. Like, is there anything that you had done like the same, or you found coaches repeating, or anything like that, you know, that always stuck with you and something that you just always look back to use to help yourself get better along the way?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Well, the last time I checked, the bases are still 90 feet from home to first and second to third. The pitcher's mound is still 60 feet, 6 inches away. The fences traditionally range anywhere from 325 down the line to 410. So the dimensions of our game have not changed much. What I have noticed that, and this is really cool to understand, going from high school to college, from college to the minor leagues, from the minor leagues to the big leagues, every level you go up, the speed of the game gets faster. So if you're a high school soccer player and you aspire to play in college, the game is going to get faster. It's going to get bigger, stronger, and faster. Same thing with football. Same thing if you want to take an acting class, you're going to notice in high school that you're operating at a certain speed, and then when you get to college, it gets faster. It's the same thing with the speed of academics in college. Wow, all of a sudden, I'm being asked to do more in a shorter period of time, so I got to keep up with the schoolwork. So I noticed that every level I went up, Coach, things got faster. The speed of the game gets faster. But the tricky part of that is I need to be able to slow things down mentally at the same time. So as things are getting faster in my mind, I have to slow things down. And I have to have a slow motor. And I can't get caught up in 50,000 people screaming at me, or the bleacher bums and the bleacher creatures in Yankee Stadium screaming at me, trying to take me off my game, because it's going to happen. So you have to be able to adjust to the speed of the game, but slow things down in your mind. I don't know if that makes sense, Coach, but that's really, really important. And that goes for in the classroom and also for competing on the field. I'll give you an example. So I remember there were times when I would go in to take tests at Mepham, and I was a really bad test taker, but I was really good at preparing. And my goal was to not go in to take a test and choke. That I would be able to take the studying and translate it into a testing environment. And many times I was able to get good grades because I just slowed myself down. I slowed my brain down and I just said, okay, you got this. You can figure this out. Take your time. This is not as difficult as you're making it out to be. So sometimes we just need to slow things down in our mind as things are getting faster. The other thing I would say is that, with baseball, there's so much technological advancements in the game with the use of analytics, which I think is brilliant, and defensive metrics and pitchers, spin rates and exit velocities and Rapsodo machines and the use of driveline equipment and iPads and high-speed cameras. So much of this technology is really good, but we still have to be able to perform like an athlete. So what I encourage everybody to do, and this is why I encourage different sports, is you develop your athletic ability by putting your body in a position to make different athletic moves. My upper body has to be connected to my lower body. My right side has to be connected to my left side. And if I'm making the same repetitive move time after time after time for 11 months out of the year, I'm really shortchanging myself. So become the best athletic version of yourself. Become as big and strong and athletic and flexible as you can become naturally, okay? If I'm a student or a player and I want to get bigger, stronger, faster, ask people who know how to do that. If I'm a student on this call, I have hundreds of years of experience on this call of coaches who are willing and able to show you how to become bigger, stronger, and faster. And they may tell you 10 things, and all 10 of them may not resonate with you. It's all right. Pick 2 or 3 of them. I had coaches who told me lots of things. I can't remember 90% of the stuff they told me, but the 10% that I held on to is worth gold. So take the good. Don't dismiss the rest of it as bad. Just say, that doesn't work for me. Let me focus on these 2 things and take that and move forward in your development. And the other thing I would say about, looking at baseball, there's lots of ways to score runs. There's a proliferation of beating teams into the ground with home runs. I'm not a huge fan of that because I think 40% of our game has become home run, walk, and strikeout. I actually find it boring. But I'm also not the Tampa Bay Rays and the Dodgers playing in the World Series, and they rely on home runs, walks, and strikeouts. the team that I played with in 1987, we hit 62 home runs as a team. Okay, we didn't beat even Barry Bonds in that one year. So, but we ran teams into the ground. It was a totally different way to win. We were a track team. We just ran teams into the ground. We stole bases. We went first to home on doubles. We scored on pop-ups behind second base, sacrifice flies. There were so many different ways for us to score. So I think what I'm basically saying here, if you're going to be a baseball player or any type of athlete, is understand thyself first. Understand who you are. If I'm a power hitter, learn how to tap into my power. If I'm a singles hitter, who really learn how to use the whole field. Never give up on your strengths, but learn how to become a complete player and the best athletic version of yourself so you can maximize your potential. I hope that helps.
That was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to have everyone, if you have questions, you can post them in the chat, and then Tom and I will say them out loud, and John will answer them. So to start off, we're going to have Billy Kender on mute, who is a Pirates quarterback, as well as a baseball player and basketball player.
Hey, what's up, Mr. Morris? I just wanted to ask, was it hard, or how did you manage your time at Teen Hall, especially when you were playing baseball or dealing with academics, especially when you went away for like the preseason or went away to play other away games?
Well, great question. I applaud you for your willingness and your desire to play three sports, play football, basketball, and baseball. And as far as time management is concerned, I love to talk about that topic because there's really no such thing as time management. We don't manage time because we all have 24 hours in a day. We all have 7 days in a week. We have 365 days in a year. So we don't manage time. But what we do manage is activities. And what I would encourage you to do is that you sound like a very busy young man who's got a lot of activities going on between sports and academics and family obligations and maybe wanting to have a social life as well. So what I would do is take care of the important stuff first, like the really important stuff that has to be taken care of. And if that's 10 things a day and that 11th thing doesn't get taken care of, well, guess what? That thing wasn't that important. So take care of the important stuff first and work your way down the list. And I assume that at the end of every day, you'll sleep well because you should be pretty tired. So that's a great challenge for you. Embrace it. Do not cower from it. Do not run away from it. Do not be frightened from it. I always tell people, I give my busiest people the toughest assignments because they know how to get things done and they know how to manage their activities instead of trying to manage time. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck with your season.
Hopefully it happens.
Can I just say something about this COVID thing? Well, you just threw that out there, and I appreciate that. So I'm very sorry for everybody on this call for having to go through what you're currently going through. My heart breaks for all of you. This COVID experience has been horrible for everybody. My heart is with anybody that's lost anybody or experienced the nightmare of COVID. I feel awful for what everybody is having to experience, young, old. It doesn't matter. This is not right. And I'm sorry for us having to go through this. With that being said, there will be something good that comes out of this. And I want you all to focus on what's going to happen. There will be a vaccine someday, and we're all going to learn from this. This has not been fun for me. I have not enjoyed this on many levels, but I am committed to coming out on the end of this a better person for it. And if I can offer that perspective for everybody on this call, I would encourage us all to do that. And I wish you all the best because right now it's becoming a decision that we all get to make how we're going to handle this. I'll leave you with that.
He said, I'm guessing the best player you've ever played is Ozzie Smith. Who was the best teammate or leader you've ever played with?
Thank you for that question, Sean. Ozzie Smith was the greatest player I ever played with. My favorite teammate of all time is Willie McGee. He's a very dear friend of mine. We played together 5 years with the St. Louis Cardinals. He's currently a coach with the Cardinals. And Willie, to me, represents everything that is right about professional sports. He's extremely talented. He was a switch hitter. He probably had 2,500 hits. He was a great teammate. He had a big heart. He wanted everybody else to succeed. He was a tenacious competitor, but he looked like he didn't want to get in there. Like, I think people took him for granted that this guy didn't compete, but he would rip your heart out if given the opportunity. But he was just a dear friend, and he represented everything that's right for me about baseball. He was great on the field. He was great off the field. He signed autographs. He did charity work. He always looked out for his teammates. He knew how to win. He knew how to accept losing. And I love him. He's just a wonderful man and a person that I consider to this day still a very dear friend. And Willie, I spoke to Willie in the summertime, and he was looking for some advice on how to handle COVID. And he opted out of his contract with the Cardinals. And his decision to opt out was so that he could be around for his grandchildren, which I thought was cool. Very cool.
All right, so now we're just gonna kind of a little fun out here. We're just gonna basically recognize our youngest viewer, which is Mr. Stein's son, Max Stein.
Hey, Max.
Hi. You remember your last game?
Oh, do we have to go down this road, Max? Yeah. Yeah, I do remember my last game. I was in Louisville, Kentucky. I was back in AAA with the St. Louis Cardinals. I suspected that the end was near. I had been thinking about this day for several weeks when I could barely get out of bed. And I was having to spend 4 hours rehabilitating and doing exercises just so I could get out and play. And I just knew that day I was getting pitches to hit that I was, fouling off or missing. And I really had a very, very difficult time. It was in the middle of May, and it was not fun. And I remember waking up the next morning and saying to my wife, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And the beautiful part about my leaving is I went to the park that day, and I went into the manager's office, and I said, Jack, I can't do this anymore. I want to retire. And he said, do me a favor. He said, just get dressed. Don't put the uniform on. Go sit in the stands for the next 2 nights and see how you feel. I want you to make a decision not based on emotion. And if after 2 days you don't want to do this anymore, then get in your car and drive home. So I watched 2 games. Couldn't envision myself out there competing at a high level. And I said, it feels right. It's time to go. And I want to leave on my terms at the ripe old age of 32 instead of somebody ripping the uniform off my back and scratching and clawing my way until nobody wanted me. So I never looked back. I never regretted my decision. I never thought about a comeback the next year. Oh, like maybe I made a mistake. So Louisville, Kentucky, probably May 20th, 1993, on a nice spring day. I think we were playing Indianapolis, and my last at bat, I think I flew out to left field against Jason Bray, right-handed pitcher. So, other than that, I don't remember anything, Max.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Coach Passman actually has a question. at high school level, when advisory hits, players display very bad body language. How does high school level coaches deal with that?
Wow. Well, I have found in my coaching experience, I never say kids today are better or worse or back when I played. Kids don't want to hear about back when I played. They could care less. So when I see something that doesn't work for me, the one thing I realize about young men and young women, it's very difficult to get them to perform when they feel embarrassed in front of their peers. They don't want to be humiliated. They don't want to be talked down to. But I have also found in the same breath that if I'm pull a young man or a young woman aside and have a private conversation about their language or about how they're showing up or how or they are acting in front of their peers, they are much more likely to be responsive in a positive manner, as opposed to if I choose to call them out in front of their peers. That's been my experience. I made mistakes of trying to berate people or make them wrong when I got emotionally elevated, and it rarely ever works. That's my experience. It's difficult because, we look at athletes and so much of games, especially baseball. Baseball is totally designed for failure. I'm hitting, it's 9-on-1. The pitcher controls all the action. Nothing happens until he throws the ball. I could do everything right as a hitter and get a really bad result. I could hit a ball square and it's caught. Guy dives and makes a great catch. Or I could hit a ball into a 30-mile-an-hour wind on a day where the wind's blowing out. It's a home run. Today it's a fly ball to the right fielder. So there's lots of things that are out of my control. And it's important that we impress upon our young people, our young players, male and female, it's really important that you do your best. And a lot of the results are out of our control. And the one thing that you can control is your effort and your ability to prepare physically, mentally, and emotionally. And those are tough lessons to learn sometimes for young people because they don't have either the emotional maturity or the training to learn how to handle failure. So help our young people, if we're coaches, help them navigate the highs and lows, the goods and bads, the ins and outs of all these competitive endeavors so that when they get to the end, they're better people. Unfortunately, not everybody on this call is going to play in the big leagues. But there's a really good chance that everybody on this call can really have a productive life and make great contributions to your communities, to your families, to your regions, to your states, and to your country, whether that's doing stuff on the field or in the classroom or, doing stuff that helps find a cure for COVID or whatever. Everybody on this call has the capability of doing something wonderful, and use these experiences on the playing field to help you become the best version of yourself.
He says that his mic and camera isn't working, so I'll ask it for him again. He asks, what is your biggest moment in your career during a game defensively or offensively?
I would say in 1987, this is a cool story. I may get a little choked up here talking about it. So it was my second year in the big leagues, and we were in a pennant race with the New York Mets and the Chicago Cubs. And I remember as the season wore on, my dad earlier in the year had been diagnosed with lung cancer. And he loved baseball. My dad taught me a lot about baseball, and it was our connection. And I remember as the summer went on that he was getting more ill, and he was out at getting treatment at a hospice facility out in Suffolk County. And I knew the day was coming when he was going to pass. And I remember getting to September of that year, in 1987, and our Cardinal team went into Shea Stadium for a huge series. It was a series that would determine who won the division, and we won Friday night, and my dad watched the game, and we won Saturday. We beat Dwight Gooden, and then we lost on Sunday. But we left town winning 2 out of 3. My dad was able to watch both games, all 3 games, and then our team went to Pittsburgh. And when I got to Pittsburgh, he had passed on Tuesday morning after the weekend series. So I went home and I helped my family bury and pay respects to my father. And then I remember going back to St. Louis, and I hadn't played in 5 days. When I was playing well. And I remember getting a flight that was canceled out of LaGuardia and missing my first flight and landing in St. Louis at about 11:45 for a Sunday 1 o'clock game, taking a cab down to the stadium, pulling into the stadium at 12:30. And the lineup had not been posted that day. And I thought that was odd. And one of my players, Willie McGee, said, "Hey, Whitey wants to see you in his office," my manager. So I walked into the office, and my manager, Whitey Herzog, who's in the Hall of Fame, said, "Hey, kid, I know there's nothing more trying than a funeral, and I'm sorry for the loss of your dad. What would you like to do today? Do you want to play or do you want to sit?" And he held out 2 lineup cards, one with my name on it and one with my name off of it. So he basically was challenging me. And I said, "You know what? I think it would be good if I played." And he said, "Good, go out and get a few hits for your dad." So we played the Chicago Cubs that day. Greg Maddux was the starting pitcher. And magically, somebody was steering the 3 hits that I got because 3 feet to the right, 3 feet to the left, 3 feet lower, and Sean Dunston, the shortstop, catches all 3 of my line drive hits. And I went 3 for 5 that day, and it's the only game in my major league career where I drove in 4 runs. I had 4 runs that day. And I remember after the last hit, standing on first base with Mark Grace and getting a standing ovation from 50,000 people. And it was really just cool. And I just really felt like my dad was, looking down on us that day and helping to direct those hits that I got. And that to me was the magic of my career as a big league baseball player, getting to give something back to him who had taught me so much as a boy. Thank you for asking that.
All right, John. A question from Matt Mano. What is the best quality to have as a leader in the locker room, and what advice do you have for someone who is trying to be that person?
Wow. Best quality for a leader is don't be afraid to express yourself, but at the same time, be respectful of everybody. So realize that in that locker room, in that clubhouse, there's different personalities. Some people are extroverted, some people are introverted. Some people are outspoken, some people are painfully shy. If you're going to say something, have the group in mind, not just to attend to your own needs if you're going to be a leader. Leaders lead, and leaders are the ones that are out front and they take the shots in the back. So if you're a leader, be willing to take a few arrows in the backside, but that's okay. You're gonna grow more by being a leader as opposed to hiding in the back. I can promise you that. The other thing that I would encourage for anybody that aspires to be a leader is to really be able to have a short memory. If I could do anything over for myself, I wish I had a shorter memory and didn't take games home with me. I wouldn't have beaten myself up as much as I did. I would have been kinder to myself and kinder to other people that I care about. So if you're going to be a leader, lead by example, lead with your actions as well as your words, and also have a short memory. 0 for 4 is okay. Come back tomorrow and be ready to go again. Do not carry 0 for 4 into tomorrow, because 0 for 4 can quickly turn into 0 for 20 if you allow it to. Have a short memory.
Okay. Neil Kaufman has a question. He said, do you think that the work ethic and discipline that you learned growing up in North Bellmore helped you succeed in your career and your life?
Yes. That's an affirmative. I don't know where it was instilled in me. Maybe I was fortunate in that when I was in high school and I started to like baseball more in 10th grade, I played 3 summers for the Bill Majors Boys Club for Dan Gallagher, who just passed away several days ago. Dan lived in Wantagh. Dan was the head coach at Holy Trinity High School for many years. He also coached at Fordham University. And Dan ran this incredible summer program called the Bill Majors Boys Club, where we played Mickey Mantle and Stan Musial. So in the summertime, we would play doubleheaders on Saturday, doubleheaders on Sunday, and games on Tuesday and Thursday night. So 6 games a week times 12 weeks, that's 72 games plus tournaments. It was great. It was a great learning experience. I learned how to compete. I learned how to fail. I learned how to get back out there the next day after a bad game. So I learned how to work. I learned how to take the good with the bad, the ups with the downs, the ins with the outs. And also I got a chance to actually work. I was a janitor. In the summertime, I had a job at my elementary school. I worked at a batting cage. I had paper routes when I was 8 years old. I had a lawn service as a little boy, so I learned how to make my own money. And I encouraged my mom and dad encouraged me to do that. And I was very grateful for all those things. Plus, I was surrounded by wonderful friends who grew up 2 blocks from me, and older friends who beat me up and tied me to the telephone pole wrapped in a blanket. You'd be arrested for doing that today, but back then it was just fun. So I was lucky. I had this wonderful environment to grow up in that taught me how to compete, taught me how to have good relationships and be kind to people, and also to work so you can become better.
So if I may, John, it's great to see you again after all these years. This is Neil.
Hi, Neil.
I remember, John sells himself short, right? So I remember when we were kids, John not only had a newspaper route, but he delivered the daily news at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So here was this kid who was like the best athlete in school, but he was up before the crack of dawn, out there hustling to make a couple of bucks. You don't see that very often. And that's what I was trying to get at with my question. John also sells himself short in another way. He was always a great hitter. He may not have thought he was a great hitter, but we played on the same senior league team. Or should I say he played on the senior league team. I warmed the bench, and he was such a great athlete that they played him at shortstop, even though he was a lefty. And the coaches were like whispering, "This Morris kid, he could make the big leagues. This kid's an athlete." So not a lot of people are blessed with the discipline and hard work and natural ability to make it. And I think all the kids that are listening need to take that into account. It's not, talent is great, but discipline and hard work, good for you, John.
Thank you, Neil. You're very kind. As far as the daily news is concerned, I used to even turn that into a competition because my route would be like 30 papers around a 10-block radius, and I used to see how fast I could do it. To break my record every day. So, you can turn anything into a competition if you want. The other thing I would encourage, and thank you for your kind words, Neil, just try to become as interesting a person as you can be if you're a student here. There's lots of other really cool things to do. So if you want to play baseball, but the little voice inside of you is telling you in 10th grade or 11th grade, maybe this isn't for me. That doesn't mean that you can't be a superstar in the band, or you can't be the lead actor in the school play, or you can't do something else really cool. And sports are great, and they're great learning experiences. They teach us a lot of lessons, but there's so many other cool things to do. Try to explore as much as you can of things that grab your attention. And, if you have 9 hobbies or 9 interests, probably what'll happen, the rule of thirds says that 3 you'll lose interest in, 3 you'll be okay with, and 3 you'll really gravitate to. So give yourself options. Thank you, Neil.
My pleasure, John.
So as
Well-
a community, we'd like to thank you, John, and we'd like to congratulate you on being named and being inducted into the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you. It's quite an honor. We were supposed to be having this beautiful event next month in Troy, New York. It's an annual event, but I have been told that we're going to kick it down the road maybe to next April, and I'm going to get to go in with distinguished New York legends like Gil Hodges, who was the manager of the 1969 World Champion Mets, Tino Martinez, legendary player with the Yankees, Goose Gossage, Hall of Famer, and other sports dignitaries from the media and the coaching profession. So it's an honor for me, something I look forward to. If I can just pass this out to everybody, I remember going to business events many years ago when I was involved in other enterprises. And one of the most successful people, presenters of these events, would always put his cell phone number up on the board. And he would show it once, and he would say, if anybody in the audience of you 20,000 people want to call me, here's my number, and feel free to call me. So I'm going to give you my email address if you want to email me, anybody on the call here, if you're too shy to ask in the company of your peers. And my email address is johnmorris@reds.com. That's my first and last name, @reds, REDS.com. Feel free to reach out to me if I can be of any assistance to you. If there's anybody on the call that's suffering or feeling belittled or marginalized, I want to hear from you. I'll help you. Okay. Good luck to everybody, and thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, John Morris, and for everyone joining to make this night happen. You can see me and Lily on the next Sports Talk, where we'll profile former NFL defensive back and Mepham graduate Donnie Brady on the next Faces in the Cases. But for now, thank you guys for joining.